A World War II bomb unearthed in Upper Bukit Timah has been successfully disposed of and nearby residents allowed to return home. It caps a day of developments which saw more than 4,000 people living and working near the area instructed to vacate in the early morning. The 100-kilogram war relic was destroyed via two controlled detonations, the first at about 12:30 p.m., another just over an hour later. Lauren Ong was on the ground throughout the day.
The familiar hustle and bustle on an ordinary weekday morning, but the roads and streets are a little heavier with a rare war relic scheduled for detonation. Within a 200-meter radius, residents had to vacate their homes before the 8 a.m. cutoff. Special arrangements were also made for some.
Definitely my grandpa's schedule because he's home all day. So my other family members have to make some rearrangement for him.
We just took the police advice to leave our windows ajar as well as just secure any loose items in our house, and hopefully when we come back everything will still be intact.
To be doubly sure there was no one indoors, police went door to door. Green strips are put up to indicate empty units. As midday approached, a flurry of activity at the site. Officers from the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit started making preparations. 10 minutes before noon, they were seen moving the bomb to a barricaded area. And 40 minutes later, a few hundred meters, some reported shaking window grills. An inspection by the officers to make sure everything is in order before a second blast just after an hour later. Shortly after, the police confirmed the bomb has been successfully disposed of.
All this comes about a week after authorities were notified of a war relic at this construction site. Residents were then informed about 4 days later and advised to vacate their premises on the day of the detonation. Discoveries like these are infrequent but not uncommon. In 2019, a 50-kilogram war relic was discovered and detonated on site.
Well, let's delve a little deeper into Singapore's wartime legacy with our guest tonight. John Kwok is a war historian and co-founder of Total Heritage. That's a company that uses technology to document and preserve history. Meanwhile, Lai Leong Kien is a safety manager in Explosives Ordnance at Explomo Corporation. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent. Now, lots of questions, I have to say. And first up, we were told by authorities that they assessed the situation to be fairly dangerous, so the on-site detonation was necessary. I guess the question is, what were the key factors that could have set this bomb off inadvertently, and how much in danger were the people at that site?
Okay, to answer this question, we have to break it down into two different parts. Okay, we have the explosive content of the unexploded ordnance and then the fusing system. So for the explosive content, in general, they are to various degrees sensitive to heat, shock, and friction. Okay, but the kicker is where the fusing system comes in, because that in its original intent is designed to trigger under different kind of circumstances. Very simply could be a mechanical impact type of effect, or as technology moves forward, there is cases where fuse or the bomb can be triggered by magnetic sensitivity or seismic or some other fanciful stuff. So it's a very wide range.
So some risk involved in being anywhere near that explosive is what I hear you
definitely. Say. Any movement to it could have potentially
set it off. Yeah. Dr. John, let's bring you in on the conversation here. I mean, you've seen images of the bomb. We know the weight of it, a very sizable 100 kilos in weight. What's your assessment of the kind of ammunition that it is, and also the specifications of it?
We do know that based on the weight and the design, the shape of it is most likely a Japanese type of bomb used during the Second World War. It was the only time where Singapore was under threat by the Japanese, and it was also the only time they used those kind of bombs. So most likely we could narrow it down to that particular time period. Yeah.
So likely?
Very likely to be from that time period. 100 kilograms is their mid-range bomb. They have something at a 25 kilogram, 50, 100, 250, and all the way up to 800.
Do we know what kind of aircraft might have dropped a bomb like that?
We don't really know, but they did bomb Singapore several times. Waves of aircraft, from bombers, medium-sized bombers, to fighter bombers that only carry one bomb. So because Singapore was a heavily fought area, parts of Singapore was heavily fought, and these planes and these bombers flew overhead, dropped their bombs in places that were important and are part of the Japanese campaign. So we don't really know what delivered the bomb. We only know that it was Bukit Timah, and Bukit Timah was an area that was fought over the Japanese and the British because it was a strategic area. Bombers would come in and usually try to soften up the defenders for the aggressors, the Japanese, to advance. So in this case, it's not surprising to find one there, actually. Yeah.
Well, affected residents were allowed to return home at around 5 p.m. after safety checks were completed. That's about 9 hours after a mandatory evacuation. Sherlyn Sia has more from Senja-Cashew Community Club. That's where they were housed temporarily.
The community spirit in full force as hundreds of residents sought shelter at this temporary holding area, located around 1 kilometre away from the site. There were designated zones for families with children and elderly, those with pets, and even a quiet area for those who needed to work or study. Around 5:10 p.m., that was when residents got the green light to return home, and that's after a nearly 9-hour wait. They were here since 8 a.m. in the morning, and following the 2 detonations in the afternoon, they've just been here waiting it out for a few hours as the police conducted their final safety checks. While residents say there's been some mild inconvenience, it's also been an experience for them. But they too had some concerns about possible property damage and have been told to reach out to the housing board or condo management for further help if needed.
It's quite unique experiences because I never worked with all these neighbors all together. Yeah, I think all the staffs today, they working here are also very friendly and helpful. So whenever I have any questions, I need help, they're also very willing to offer their help. Yeah.
I remember my dad was telling me about during the Japanese occupation and what is it like and all that. So I was quite fascinated by all his stories about bomb exploding and all that.
There's a big question mark. Yeah. But so far I think not much damages lah. I can see no vibration. Yeah. So hope for all the best, clear everything.
MP for the area, Vivian Balakrishnan, also paid a visit. He says he's grateful for all the agencies who've come together.
All in all, I'm very pleased with the way the community has come together, supported each other, looked up for each other. Everyone is calm. Everyone knows that help and support is available, and this is the way things should be done.
And hopefully a week of anxiety has come to an end for those in and around the construction site.
Well, let's bring our guests back to the conversation, starting with you, Leong Kian. We saw the measures that were taken before the detonation itself. They evacuated buildings as well as 4,000 people. In your estimation, were those appropriate measures to take, or erring too much on the side of caution, or very necessary?
Based on what I've read and seen in the video, this evacuation is actually following a very stringent international and SAF guideline. So there's nothing out of the norm. In fact, based on what I've seen that they have done on the protective work, they have already taken drastic measures. SF has already taken drastic measures to minimize the disruption to the general public. So I think it's not over the board. Okay, it's just happened that because of the density of the population in that area, that's why the numbers spike up so drastically. So, yeah, it's just a matter of circumstance. So,
Dr. John, it's obviously been a big topic of conversation among people. The fact that this bomb was found in a highly residential area. You know, I mean, there are businesses there as well, and a lot of people living there, 4,000 people evacuated. The rarity of something like this, if you actually look through the news, you'll see quite commonly, actually, over the years, 2016, 2017, 2020, we find these types of ammunitions from World War II quite, I wouldn't say it's that rare.
Which is unusual because these things are designed to blow up. So we shouldn't be seeing a lot of them. But because bombs come in different sizes, they are put together by different components. If only one component fails, the whole bomb doesn't trigger, it doesn't explode. And that can happen. I mean, these things are designed with failure rates. So anything can happen when the bomb drops, the fuse didn't go off, the time fuse failed to ignite, the bomb falls on the ground. If it's a soft ground, it gets buried inside. Over time, it gets forgotten. No one goes and count every single bomb that was dropped in World War II. That could have been missed. And when that has been missed, jungle takes over the area. Over time, it's been forgotten, no cleanup. And when development takes place around the area, we start to remove the topsoil and everything, and we start to uncover all this. And that becomes a danger because we have no idea what actually failed. And the concern is that whatever failed might come back, trigger the explosive components, and it will become a bomb again. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so essentially it remains dangerous even whilst buried in the ground.
Yes, that's right.
Even if it hasn't been struck or damaged in some way, it remains a dangerous...
It remains a bomb. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
You know, we were just talking about how it's not uncommon to find these kind of ordnance out there, World War II ordnance in Singapore. To both of you, perhaps starting with you first, Leong Kian, should we be more proactive in, what's the word, canvassing the area and unearthing these kind of ordnance before we stumble on them?
To be honest, for this type of situation where UXO or unexploded bomb is found, it's very common in any country that has been involved in any armed conflict. So, in fact, internationally, a lot of countries have already started to mandate searches to be conducted, to clear the area from possible explosive remnants, before any land development activities. In Singapore, currently, from what I understand, there are already some projects that has adopted this practice. It's just that at this point, it's not widespread to all projects.
Dr. John, should we be clearing the land, as it were, and sort of before projects take place and so on, before the digging and the hacking goes on?
Well, this is a World War II bomb, and Singapore has only experienced World War II. So if we pull up on the map of Singapore, we can trace the sites of battle that took place, and these will be the most likely places that such bombs or artillery shells or remnants of the war can be found. So in tracing all these battle sites, we will be able to isolate which areas are most likely to experience to encounter such war relics. So we don't have to worry about areas that had never been, fought over before, or seen war damage or war combat before. So as long as we focus on the areas that have experienced wartime damage or battle, then that's a good place to start.
Why one's knowledge of history is so important in this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate the conversation, Dr. John and Leong Kian. We have been speaking there with war historian John Kwok and bomb and explosives expert Lai Leong Kian.